Imagine for a moment a turn-of-the-century Parisian street, bustling with horse-drawn carriages and elegant ladies. Now picture a crowd gathering, not for a circus, but for something far more disturbing, a display of human beings, exhibited as exotic spectacles. In 1906, over 1 million people flocked to the Jardin d'Acclimatation in Paris to see a Congolese village, complete with people shipped across oceans, living in constructed huts, poked, prodded, and stared at. This wasn't a one-off anomaly, but a widespread, horrifying global phenomenon. How did humanity descend to such a point? And what dark secrets do these forgotten human zoos still hold? To understand this chilling reality, we need to rewind to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, an era consumed by colonial expansion and burgeoning scientific racism. European powers, driven by a thirst for resources and a twisted sense of superiority, carved up the world. As they encountered diverse cultures, an unsettling curiosity emerged, one that quickly devolved into dehumanization. It began subtly, with explorers bringing back exotic individuals to display at fairs and anthropological societies. These were often presented as living proof of European civilization and racial hierarchy, reinforcing the deeply flawed idea that non-European peoples were somehow less evolved. Early examples include Karl Hagenbeck, a German animal dealer who in 1874 began exhibiting Sami people, then called Lapps, and their reindeer in Hamburg. This wasn't just about showing different cultures, it was about presenting them as primitive, as missing links in a racist evolutionary chain. Public imagination was captivated, and the horrifying demand, for more specimens grew. These exhibitions offered a visual justification for colonialism, cementing a narrative of European dominance while stripping the displayed individuals of their dignity and humanity. The very concept of exoticism was weaponized, turning living, breathing people into living exhibits, a prelude to a much darker chapter. But things took a far darker turn as these displays evolved from simple ethnographic shows to full-blown human zoos. The fascination wasn't enough. The otherness had to be amplified, exaggerated, and often fabricated. Entire villages were constructed in European and American cities, complete with artificial landscapes, a backdrop to the living exhibits. People from Africa, Asia, and indigenous communities from the Americas were coerced, tricked, or outright kidnapped and brought across continents. They were forced to wear traditional clothing, often costumes designed to meet Western expectations of savagery, and perform daily rituals, real or invented, for hordes of gawking spectators. Imagine the cold, alien stares, the pointing fingers, the shouts, the constant feeling of being an object, not a person. Children were born in these camps, never knowing a world outside this dehumanizing spectacle. The famous 1889 Paris Exposition Universelle displayed 400 indigenous people, attracting an astonishing 18 million visitors. It wasn't just about entertainment. It was a deeply disturbing form of propaganda, designed to naturalize racial prejudice and justify colonial exploitation. The psychological toll on the exhibited was immense. Many suffered from depression, illness, and a profound sense of displacement. They were denied their agency, their language, their culture, often suffering extreme hardships and ultimately dying far from home. One such horrific example unfolded at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, an event intended to celebrate human achievement, but which instead hosted one of the largest human zoos in history. Over 1,000 indigenous people from various tribes, including Filipino, Apache, and Igorot communities, were displayed. They were forced to live in conditions designed to reinforce racist stereotypes, enduring humiliation and exploitation under the guise of scientific study. This was not a fringe activity. It was mainstream entertainment, endorsed by governments, scientists, and the public, cementing an insidious cycle of prejudice and exploitation. The world was watching, and often actively participating in this grotesque spectacle, setting the stage for one of the most tragic individual stories to emerge from this dark chapter. Among the countless nameless individuals caught in this horrifying system, one name became synonymous with the cruelty of human zoos: Ota Benga. His story is perhaps the most harrowing testament to the depths of dehumanization reached during this era. Ota Benga, a Mbuti man from the Congo, had already endured unimaginable trauma. His village was massacred by the Force Publique, a brutal colonial militia serving King Leopold II of Belgium's insatiable lust for rubber. His wife and children were murdered. Alone and devastated, he was purchased by American missionary Samuel Werner, who was on a mission to bring pygmy people to the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair as exhibits. Ota Benga was displayed for months, a living curiosity, a savage from the heart of Africa. But his ordeal didn't end there. After the fair, Werner, struggling to manage him, arranged for Ota Benga to be transferred to the Bronx Zoo in New York City. What happened next beggars belief. In September 1906, Ota Benga was placed in the monkey house, initially alongside an orangutan, and later the zoo's chimpanzees, in full view of the public. He was given a bow and arrows, encouraged to shoot at targets, and spectators were invited to observe him as a missing link, a primitive specimen of humanity. The exhibit signage chillingly read, "African Pygmy, Ota Benga, age 23 years, height 4 feet 11 inches, weight 103 pounds, brought from the Kasai River, Congo Free State, South Central Africa, by Dr. Samuel P. Werner, exhibited each afternoon during September." Thousands upon thousands flocked to see him, captivated by the spectacle of a man treated as an animal. He became an international sensation, but also a symbol of profound moral outrage. Black ministers in New York, led by Reverend James H. Gordon, condemned the display, calling it an affront to human dignity and a reinforcement of racist ideologies. They demanded his release, staging protests and applying immense public pressure. Eventually, the zoo's director, William Hornaday, capitulated, and Ota Benga was released into Reverend Gordon's care. He tried to rebuild his life, attending seminary and working, but the trauma of his past, the constant degradation, and his profound homesickness eventually overwhelmed him. In 1916, at the age of 32, Ota Benga committed suicide, ending a life tragically defined by exploitation and dehumanization. His story remains a haunting reminder of the devastating human cost of these so-called scientific and cultural exhibitions. Ota Benga's tragic story, and the countless others like it, serve as a stark, indelible stain on human history. The era of human zoos may have officially ended in the mid-20th century, with the final known exhibition occurring in Belgium in 1958, but its legacy is far from over. The insidious ideas of racial hierarchy and the objectification of the other, normalized by these grotesque spectacles, continue to reverberate through society. They cemented stereotypes that fueled discrimination, injustice, and violence for generations. We must remember these villagers and specimens not as passive victims, but as individuals whose humanity was brutally denied, whose stories deserve to be heard and understood. Acknowledging this dark chapter forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about colonialism, scientific racism, and the dangers of unchecked prejudice. It compels us to question how easily empathy can be eroded and how quickly curiosity can morph into exploitation. The human zoo might be a relic of the past, but the prejudices it fostered, the divisions it amplified, still cast long shadows on our present. Understanding this history is not just about remembering a past transgression. It is a vital step in ensuring that such dehumanization never, ever happens again. If you want to dive deeper into the chilling intersection of anthropology and exploitation, our next video explores the dark history of craniometry and the pseudo-scientific quest for racial superiority. Don't miss it.